Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're exploring an absolutely massive psychological and spiritual shift. We're going to look at what it actually takes to move away from living in this constant, exhausting state of personal survival and how to step into a life that's fueled by a powerful, undeniable sense of mission. If you've ever felt like you're just endlessly running on a treadmill, constantly trying to get your needs met but never actually finding any real peace, well, the source material we're unpacking today has some truly fascinating answers.
Let's just be real for a second and validate a reality that so many of us share. Why do we feel so incredibly trapped, so burned out, even when our basic needs are completely met? I mean, we live in an age of unbelievable comfort, and yet we're absolutely plagued by anxiety. The insights we're diving into today offer this really fascinating diagnosis for this universal pain. It basically suggests that all of this traces back to a fundamental misunderstanding of who we actually are.
Okay, let's dive right into part one. The surviving child trap.
To really understand our daily exhaustion, the source points to a psychological trap that pretty much all of us have fallen into. It's called the surviving child. Now, in Hasidic philosophy, this is referred to as the Nefesh Behemoth, which translates to the natural animal soul. And look, this isn't some dark evil force. It's simply the instinctual part of our psyche. It's that part of us that's constantly panicking, driven entirely by fear, this desperate need for approval, and obsessive survival mechanisms. It acts like a thick, noisy barrier between us and our true, peaceful, divine soul.
So, what happens when we identify with this surviving child? Well, our behaviors become incredibly draining. We fall into this relentless people-pleasing trap, right? Because we are absolutely terrified of rejection. We get hit with obsessive impulses, chasing these temporary thrills just to numb out the underlying anxiety. We're constantly worrying about whether we belong, exhausting ourselves by endlessly chasing external validation. We even let people take advantage of us, just so we can feel accepted. If this sounds like a fast track to profound burnout and loneliness, well, that's exactly what it is.
And here's the crazy irony of the whole thing. We so often think that by constantly satisfying these desires and giving in to these impulses, we're actually being free. We think, hey, I'm doing what I want. But the reality is the exact opposite. When you're driven by that surviving child, you aren't free at all. You're completely enslaved to a panicked inner state. You aren't consciously choosing to overwork or people-please or stress out. Your inner survival instinct has literally hijacked the wheel and is forcing you to do it.
Which brings us to Part 2, the cost of needing.
You see, we've basically been conditioned to ask the exact wrong questions about our own lives. On one hand, we've got the surviving child, whose primary obsessive question is always, what do I need? It's a mindset completely driven by survival, by lack, and by taking from the world. It looks at relationships, jobs, everyday events, and just asks, how does this serve me? But then we have the divine soul, your true self. Its primary question is entirely different. It asks, what is needed of me? This is a mindset driven by mission, by contribution, and giving. This specific shift from what do I need to what is needed of me is the absolute core of moving from crippling anxiety into a state of profound peace.
Let's look at part 3, the Alter Rebbe's question.
To really see how this works, there's an incredible historical anecdote that captures this paradigm shift perfectly. There was this man who used to be incredibly wealthy, but he had lost all his fortunes. He came to the Alter Rebbe, who was a brilliant 18th century Hasidic master, and he's just weeping bitterly, endlessly listing out his miseries. He's saying, I need this money to survive, my family needs that, I need to get my status back. The Alter Rebbe just sat there, listened patiently, and then delivered a response that pierces straight to the heart of what we're talking about today. He simply said, I hear what you need. I haven't heard what you are needed for.
The source texts actually tell us that upon hearing this, the wealthy man fainted right then and there. No joke. Why? Because it was this shocking, life-altering awakening. In a single second, he realized that his total obsession with his own needs, his ego, his surviving child, was actively suffocating his soul's vitality. He had hijacked his own life force by making literally everything about me and my survival rather than his divine purpose. I mean, realizing that you've been living your whole life upside down like that, yeah, that's definitely enough to make anyone faint.
Moving on to part 4, awakening the divine soul.
So how do we actually do this? How do we make this internal shift from being a panicked survivor to a peaceful, mission-driven soul? The Hasidic texts break this down into a brilliant psychological process, basically giving us 3 actionable steps. Step 1, see it. Just notice when you're operating out of fear or that desperate need to please. Step 2, separate. Realize that this panicked voice in your head is not actually you. And step 3, let the soul lead. Once you let that panic quiet down, your true inner compass just naturally steps forward to guide you toward what is truly required of you.
Now, doing this requires a massive shift in perspective. You are not your thoughts.
You are not your feelings. You are the observer. The source material uses this really great analogy. Think about the clothes you're wearing right now, or the glasses on your face. You wouldn't walk around saying, "I am this jacket," right? In the exact same way, your anxious thoughts and panicked feelings are just garments. They're running through you, sure, but they are not the core of who you are. Merely noticing that panicking inner child literally strips away its power. When you observe it, rather than identify with it, you create this quiet, open space for your true, unbothered soul to finally emerge.
Okay, part 5, living a mission-driven life.
So what happens when we redefine our everyday actions not as these desperate personal needs, but as divine requirements? Well, in a mission-driven life, you don't just eat to numb out a craving, you eat to fuel your body so you have the energy to accomplish your mission. You don't work out of some panic desperation for social status. You work because fulfilling your responsibility to provide is what is divinely required of you in that moment. True love isn't about what the other person can do to boost your ego. It's about looking at them and asking, what is needed of me right here? When you make that shift, your everyday obligations completely transform from stressful burdens into peaceful, purposeful missions.
To really drive home why this messy, earthly struggle matters so much, the source brings in this grand, cosmic metaphor. Moses answering the angels at Mount Sinai. When Moses went up to receive the Torah, the angels actually protested. I mean, they were perfect, purely spiritual beings with zero physical struggles. They asked God, "Why in the world would you give this ultimate wisdom to a flawed physical human?" And Moses answered them by asking a few questions of his own. Were you ever enslaved in Egypt? Do you have an evil inclination? Do you ever experience jealousy or fatigue? And the angels obviously had to say no.
Moses' point was incredibly simple but absolutely profound. Without the struggle in the Egypt of the material world, without the constraints, the anxiety, the literal physical limitations, we cannot reveal our ultimate purpose. Angels don't have a surviving child to battle, so they literally cannot achieve the deep, hard-fought spiritual victories that humans can. The very anxiety, the darkness, and those impulses you battle every single day, they are not signs that you're failing. They are the exact canvas on which your divine mission is meant to be revealed. Transforming that darkness is your unique job.
So I want to leave you with a really practical, powerful tool today. The very next time you feel that wave of fear hit, or that desperate urge to please someone, or just that deep burning exhaustion, I want you to just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, who is leading right now? Is it the panic survivor desperately asking, what do I need? Or is it the peaceful soul asking, what is needed of me? Make that shift, step out of survival mode, and step into your mission. Thanks so much for joining me.